Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be breaking down a major concept in radiology, fluoroscopy. This isn't just about taking a picture, this is about watching the body in motion live. Whether you're a student preparing for your exam or a tech brushing up on the basics, this video will help you fully understand how fluoroscopy works from top to bottom. We'll cover everything from what it is to how it evolved to how we see that glowing image on the screen in front of us. Let's dive in. So what exactly is fluoroscopy? In simple terms, it's an imaging technique that allows you to see real-time movement inside the body using x-rays. Unlike a traditional x-ray, which gives you a static, still image, fluoroscopy gives you a live video feed. Imagine watching a barium swallow, seeing the contrast material move through the esophagus in real time, or watching a catheter being guided through a blood vessel during angiography. That's fluoroscopy. Fluoroscopy is essential in many clinical settings, from orthopedic procedures to gastrointestinal exams to cardiac catheterization labs. Fluoro is everywhere. And one of its specialized uses is angiography, where we visualize blood vessels dynamically with contrast injected into the body. There are two big categories in angiography, which is neuroradiology, which focuses on the brain and spinal cord, and vascular radiology, which handles the rest of the body's vessels. And those combined usually these days are kind of called interventional radiology, which we won't get too much into, but it's good to know. So when fluoroscopy was first introduced, the technology was pretty primitive, and honestly it was pretty dangerous too. Technologists had to sit in a dark room just to let their eyes adjust. It's a process called dark adaptation. And to maintain this adaptation, they wore red goggles, which helped preserve their night vision by filtering out the white light. Even worse, the technologists had to look directly through the fluoro screen, meaning they were staring straight into the X-ray beam as it exited the patient's body, and this drastically increased their radiation exposure. We didn't have protective shielding or remote monitors yet, so just imagine doing your job with X-rays constantly hitting your eyes and face. That's how early fluoroscopy worked. Alright, so the game changed when the image intensifier was introduced. This technology made the image brighter and sharper, allowing it to be displayed on a monitor instead of requiring direct viewing. Not only did this drastically reduce radiation dose to the operator, it also eliminated the need for the red goggles and sitting in the dark. So now the tech could stand behind a leaded shield and monitor the image safely. It was a turning point in radiologic safety and efficiency. The intensifier didn't just make the image brighter, it also amplified the light and made it possible to see more anatomical detail at a lower dose. And the brightness was crucial because it allowed the eye to see color, shapeness, and motion, using something we'll talk about later, the cones in your eyes. Alright, and so now we're going to talk about the setup of rooms. So in most modern fluoroscopy rooms, the X-ray tube is placed under the patient, and the image intensifier is positioned above them. This under-over configuration minimized the scatter radiation toward the operator. Some fluoro rooms also included a second X-ray tube used for spot films, which are static, higher resolution still images taken during or after a procedure. Now we're going to talk about technique. Fluoro is a continuous exposure technique, but it's designed to minimize radiation by operating at low milliampere values, typically under 5 mA. That's much lower than conventional X-ray. At the same time, kVp is increased to ensure adequate beam penetration while keeping the mass low. This balance reduces patient dose and it still gives you a usable image. Modern systems use something called automatic brightness control. This adjusts exposure factors on the fly. So if you move to a thicker body part, the system increases exposure. If the part thins out, it lowers it. It's like cruise control for brightness. Okay, and the brightness on the fluoroscopic monitor is called illuminance. It's measured in lux or lumens per square meter. Typically, fluoro illuminance can reach about 10,000 lux, while traditional radiography is only around 1,000 lux. That's a big difference. So what does that matter? It comes down to the human eye. We rely on two types of photoreceptor cells, cones and rods. Cones are concentrated in the center of your retina in a region called the fovea centralis. These cells function in bright light, also allow us to see and perceive color, fine detail, and motion. This is called photopic vision. Rods, on the other hand, are spread around the periphery of the retina. They function in low light conditions, but they're colorblind and they have poor spatial resolution. That's called scotopic vision. So in bright fluoro imaging, you're primarily using your cones, which help you interpret the image with clarity. So now we're going to go step by step through the image intensifier, which what makes the whole fluoro thing possible. So step 1, we have the input phosphor. We're going to go layer by layer. X-rays from the patient strike the input phosphor, which is made of cesium iodide. This layer converts X-rays into light, and that is called scintillation. It's also kind of the same thing as a scintillator if you remember my old video on DR versus CR. If you need to brush up on that topic, just make sure you go back to it. But yeah, then next we have the photocathode. That's step 2. Right next to the phosphor is the photocathode, and it's made of cesium and antimony. It absorbs light and it emits electrons. Think of this like turning visible light into electron signals. Important note, this is not a photoconductor. Photoconductors convert X-rays directly into electrical charge, like in digital detectors. That's not what's happening here. Step 3, we have the accelerating anode. The electrons are pulled toward the output by the positively charged anode. It accelerates them, but it doesn't get struck on the anode like how a regular X-ray tube would. There's a hole in the center where the electrons are going to pass through. So step 4, we have electrostatic lenses. These lenses have a negative charge and they act like a funnel. They focus the electrons toward the center of the tube in a process called electron optics. Step 5, we have the output phosphor. Finally, the electrons hit the output phosphor, and that's made of zinc cadmium sulfide. This layer converts the electrons back into light. Because this phosphor is smaller than the input phosphor, the image gets compressed and appears 50 to 70 times brighter than where it started. Alright, so let's run it back one more time. I know this is a short video, but you can repeat it as much as you want. So, fluoro is all about dynamic imaging, real-time X-ray motion. It's like watching a live video inside the body. Angiography, that's the application where we watch contrast move through vessels. If it's the brain or spinal cord, that's neuroradiology. If it's the vessels in the rest of the body, that's vascular radiology. So in the early days, techs had to sit in the dark, wearing red goggles, which is called dark adapt. But the image intensifier changed the game. It made the image bright enough to see on a monitor, and it drastically lowered the operator dose. Fluoro is done with the tube under the patient and the image receptor above. It uses low MA and a high KVP to reduce patient dose while still penetrating the bodies to get our image. And with automatic brightness control, the system adjusts itself so your image stays clear no matter what anatomy you're scanning. The image intensifier works in 5 steps. X-rays hit the input phosphor, which is made of cesium iodide, turning them into light. The photocathode absorbs that light and it turns it into electrons. The anode accelerates the electrons through the tube. Electrostatic lenses focus them towards the center. At the output phosphor, which is made of zinc cadmium sulfide, the electrons turn back into light. Only now it's 50 to 70 times brighter. And don't forget the eyes. Cones is equal to daylight, detail, color, and sharp vision. The rods are responsible for night vision, grayscale, and blurry outlines. So now you know fluoroscopy is more than just live x-ray. It's the product of decades of innovation and fine-tuning. From red goggles in the dark to amplified light through advanced electron optics, it's a system designed for clarity, motion, and safety. As a radiology student or tech, understanding this process is critical, not just for passing your tests, but for appreciating how we guide catheters safely, track contrast, and observe anatomy and motion every day. If you found this breakdown helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more radiology videos, and drop a comment below. What do you want next? Digital fluoro, magnification, or post-exposure? And thanks for watching RAD Life 101, where we make radiology simple and straight to the point.